All right, Ryan Wright here, national recruiting analyst with Rivals. We got the man, Kelly, here from Tide Illustrated, ready to talk some Alabama football. Kelly, thanks for coming on. Got to ask everybody, how you feeling today after a crazy day yesterday?
Signing this early signing day has turned into what was, the old signing day before in February, but it's now on top of bowl practices and the holidays. And so it's a crazy, crazy time for pretty much all of us in this business. And then with the NIL stuff going on and you're getting a lot more of sort of signing day surprises that really come out of left field and guys not signing and guys pushing back and stuff. So it's been kind of a wild 72 hours, I would say.
Yeah, and you're deep on the basketball side too, so you're not just limited to one sport. You do it all, my man. So let's start talking. So for those watching, this is before Desrick's announcement, which is coming up. We kind of feel that that's going to be Alabama, so we'll find out for sure. But before Desrick's announcement, your thoughts on Alabama's class, top to bottom, good, bad, in the middle? I mean, obviously they're rated number one, but that aside, just like what you think of what they brought to campus, what are your thoughts on the class?
I think they addressed some pretty big needs. They had some, issues, I would say, with the offensive line, just in numbers. They needed offensive linemen. They got Caden Proctor, who's going to be a guy that probably steps in immediately. And I'm going to guess he starts at guard for them. I wouldn't be shocked if he literally starts at guard next year for them and then eventually moves out to tackle, his more natural position. They signed 5 offensive linemen that are all really highly rated, highly regarded guys. They got some guards. And then obviously Proctor's the big cherry on top there. And then, they got some other nice pieces. Caleb Downs, I think, is a really big piece for them in the secondary. Keon Keeley was a huge win as a just sort of freak pass rusher. You have him and Quay Rusaw now, like both in that class. They've signed several defensive tackles. The other big area where they needed help is receiver. They just didn't have a lot of playmakers this past year. You had Jalen Hale, you get Malik Benson, the JUCO. I think they've got some better pieces there as well. That's an area, again, where they need immediate upgrade. And then the quarterback position, they signed 2 really good quarterbacks, Dylan Lonergan and Eli and Holstein. And, they needed some guys to come in and compete and push. Bryce Young's, I'm sure, moving on to the NFL. And I think you got to figure out how to replace that, and you need competition. So they'll have 4 guys, as it stands right now going into next year that can compete for that quarterback position. I think that's a really good situation for the Tide to kind of readjust the offense as they move into whatever this next phase is after the last few years with Bryce Young and Bill O'Brien running the offense.
So you mentioned Caden Proctor as somebody that could start right away potentially. Are there any other impact players that you see? Obviously, transfer portal can change things, and I'm not trying to get you to predict what will happen in that regard. But based off of what's on the roster right now, going into next year with the incoming class, other than Caden Proctor, are there any other guys that you see will could be that difference maker and whether they start right away or not, I don't know. That's what are your thoughts? Are there any of those guys that are going to be those impact players?
Well, that's where it gets interesting with someone like Keeley, right? Like Will Anderson will leave, and what do they do at that position? They need some upgraded play at linebacker. I think that's an area where you could see a young guy step in. The secondary, they had some issues with some performance in the back end, and they're changing the coaching staff one way or the other because Charles Kelly just left to go be the defensive coordinator at Colorado. So I expect that there's going to be some opportunities there for young guys. There's going to be a shuffling no matter what, particularly at safety spot where Coach Kelly was coaching. And, again, one of the other things in all of this too is we don't know, like, for sure what the set staff is going to be now. Everyone tries to hold their staff together until signing day, and then you see a lot of places these changes. And Alabama is a place where guys are always being pursued for upgraded jobs, coordinator positions, head coaching jobs, and things like that. Will you see something happen? People are still curious kind of what's going on with Pete Golding and Bill O'Brien. Are they back for next year? Is Saban make a change there? Do those guys pursue other opportunities? Bill O'Brien's been in the mix for head coaching jobs. So there's a lot of things at play that are going to kind of change all this. But I think the one thing that Nick Saban's always been really good at is finding talent and finding guys that fit in his metrics that he likes, the height, weight, the developmental curve he's looking for. And they've done that. They have a really talented class, one of the top classes all time and rivals, just in terms of the overall points. So it's an incredible haul. It goes to show, I think he's really focused on trying to build from within and develop talent within and then keep that talent versus just going out and playing the transfer portal game where you add 10 guys in the portal and try to bodge something together. Cause it seems like the teams that did that really struggled this past season.
Yeah, I would agree. Outside of the USC, but that's not playing SEC competition. No slight to the Pac-12, but I think it's a little bit easier. I'm not a big fan. Well, I was impressed with what Bill Snyder did at Kansas State with the JUCO guys, and I kind of look at it that way, where you're bringing different guys in. They may not know the system that well. They have to learn the system. There's that opportunity to pause, think about what you're doing on the field instead of reacting and just going with it. And then there's the gelling part. I can keep going on, receivers running routes, quarterbacks knowing where the guys like the ball, all that stuff. And I think sometimes the fans overlook just thinking that, a guy can just step in and do whatever because it's just football. So there is a lot to that. And also agree with basically what you're saying. You can't count out what Nick Saban's done and how he does it, because he does it really well. And I'm surprised more coaches don't copy that model, because it's pretty straightforward and simple. You just got to do it. So, but he is a master. All right. So we talked about some guys that could be impact players, the class overall. Do you see them adding any other guys in the 2023 class? Are they done? Might they look for another piece or two in the transfer portal? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I definitely think they're going to be very strategic with the portal. There's probably a few spots I would imagine they would like to add an older offensive lineman, for example, to come in and compete. They probably need someone that's a little bit of an older body in that room. The quarterback thing remains kind of a big question too. Like, will they go out and try to find whoever the hot quarterback is in the portal, or someone that come in and compete that's going to be a little bit more of a sure bet? I'm like super curious about that. I think there's so many factors that come into play there. You got to see a little bit of the two younger quarterbacks, Melrose and Simpson, this past year, but they certainly didn't show like that they're ready for prime time necessarily. So do they try to upgrade there? That's one of the more interesting things that you have to decide with the portal too, is like, are you willing to go take that transfer portal quarterback that's a 1-year rental? Are you looking for a guy that's going to play 2 or 3 years, that's a younger guy that maybe went on the move because he didn't win the job? I don't see that happening at Alabama. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know what their plan is there. But those are sort of the spots, and maybe a playmaking wide receiver. They need someone that can take the top off the defense. That was really something that was missing this past year for them. They didn't have the same vertical threats that they've had in the past. And I think that hurt them in a lot of games and kind of limited some of their scoring opportunities. Their best sort of vertical threat was Jahmyr Gibbs, a running back. And so I don't think you can play that way. And obviously Gibbs is going to go to the NFL, I'm sure. So it's going to be something to watch here over the next, I would say really through the spring, to be honest with you, especially with receivers. You don't necessarily have to take that person now. You can wait and try to find them between now and May, when the second window opens in the portal. And maybe that's when they find their upgrade. And there's still a lot of coaching dominoes to fall as well, where you may see guys go into the portal because their coach left or their coach went to the NFL or whatever. I mean, think about like Lincoln Riley and the timing of all of that, right? Like last year. So there's a lot of things that can still kind of play out that could be interesting to watch down the stretch for Alabama.
Yeah, I agree 100%. As solid of a program as it is, and this can happen anywhere, it's not something specific about Alabama, right or wrong, but there are a lot of unknown variables coming up for the coaching staff. What they may need to bring in, guys leaving, guys declaring for the NFL. So a lot to keep tabs on, and going into onto Tide Illustrated to learn more, keep up to date on everything. Kelly, appreciate your time. Everything's been crazy and busy. You keeping us updated. Thank you.
No problem, Ryan.